All right, so we're going to go ahead and start off day 4 on number 71, which is a long division problem. And let's see, just trying to clear some space here. So for number 71, what I'm going to do is just kind of rewrite it as a long division. So it's going to look like this, 6m squared, so here we go. 6m squared minus 11m plus 4, and on the outside I'm going to put 2m minus 3. Now guys, remember what I tell you, every time we do something, check your multiple choices to see if you can already get your answer from them, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 2m go, how many times do I multiply 2m to get 6m squared? So that's going to be 3m, right? So 3m, and then you're supposed to distribute, okay? Distribute the new number back in. So that's going to be, let me get rid of that line right there, 6m squared, and then minus 9m. Now I can already tell you that A and B are not answers because I started off with the 3m as my solution, right? On top it says 3m. So the key to the next problem, or the next part, is going to be, what is my next part of that quotient? Because if it's a positive one, then my answer is C. If it's a negative one, then my answer is D. And I can stop right there and move on. Okay? But of course, I'm going to finish the problem. But just like I said, sometimes you're trying to work quick. You know, take the clues that are there, right? So let's go ahead and subtract. This is going to give me 6m minus 6m is 0. Now this next one's tricky. Negative 11 minus negative 9. That's a plus 9. So that's going to be negative 2m and then drop the 4. Okay? So to make 2m into negative 2m, I got to multiply by negative 1. So notice I know my answer is D. Okay? But let's just keep going. But if I was taking this test myself, I would have already stopped and I would have been moving on. Okay? Because I gotta look, right? I can see. Oh, it's because I'm asking myself, how do I make 2m, that number in the front, 2m, into negative 2m? So I gotta multiply by negative 1. So negative 1 times 2m is negative 2m. And negative 1 times negative 3 is a positive 3. We're gonna subtract. So negative 2m minus a negative 2m, that's 0. 4 minus 3 is 1. So your answer is 3m minus 1. Then there's a positive 1 over 2m minus 3. Now I know they don't write it with the parentheses a lot of times, but I like to do that so I know what my quotient is. But you can see my solution is D. Okay, so it's not C. Any other questions from anything past 43? Like I said, though, multiple choice is great with math because we can always kind of figure stuff out as we go. Go ahead. 72. All right, 72 says factor each and find all the zeros. 1 0 has been given. Okay, so they told me that I have this function, x cubed minus 10x squared plus 33x minus 36, and they say one of the answers is 3. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically synthetic division. Remember, they told me to use the answer of 3. They're not saying like that we have a couple different things and you got to figure out their factors or anything like that. No, we're using the number 3. And like I told you guys before, when I taught this to you guys a week and a half maybe ago, or maybe about a week ago, I told you guys that there's a difference. Because remember, there was a time when inside that little half box, they would tell you use the opposite of the number, right? But that only happens when they say you're going to divide it by, and then they'll put like a binomial. Well, then in that case, I would have put a 4 in that half box. Okay? When they give you 2 terms, a binomial, you use the opposite of the number. When they just give you the number, 3, then you use the actual number. Okay?
We didn't use the opposite number
For 70, well, it's because we did long division. We could also do synthetic, and that one should work too. But yeah, you could have used synthetic. Right now, I'll show you. So we can see how that works too. So we're going to use a 3. Let me get all my coefficients. That's going to be 1, negative 10, 33, and negative 36. By the way, I did do a mental check to make sure all the powers were there. So a power of 3, a power of 2, a power of 1, a power of none. So they're all good. I don't have to put any like random zeros anywhere. So let's go ahead and do synthetic division here. So right here we add, here we multiply, drop the 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 10 plus 3 is negative 7. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21. 33 plus negative 21 is 12. And 3 times 12, that's going to be 36. My answer is 0, which I'm supposed to get. Remember, they're saying that 3 is an answer. So if 3 is an answer, there should be no remainder. And I didn't get it. That's good. So that means that my solution right now will be x squared minus 7x plus 12. And I have to keep solving. Because remember, I already have one answer. Which, by the way, you'll know that C doesn't work, right? You should be able to tell that C does not work. Because in part C, did they even mention that 3 was a solution? No. They said the zeros are 4, negative 5, multiplicity 2. There's no 3's there. And they told me 3 is an answer. But A, B, and D all have 3 as a solution. So that means those are options. But C did not have it as a solution. So I already know C, no way that's going to be an answer. Now, to do this next part, I'm going to have to try the X method, or in worst case scenario, I have to use the quadratic formula, but I think X method works here. So A times C, that's 12, and B is negative 7, so I can use a negative 3 and a negative 4. Okay? And I don't have to divide by anything because A is 1. So these are my solutions. That means that X minus 3, X minus 4 are equal to 0. That means that my two answers are what? Positive 3 and positive 4. So I have two solutions that I just solved for plus the other one. So here are my actual answers. Sorry about that weird highlight there. It's going to be 4 and 3 multiplicity 2, because 3 occurred twice. The 3 they gave me, the 3 I solved for, and the 4. Okay? So, which one says that the zeros are 4 and 3 multiplicity 2? B. So there you go. Okay? That's the one that has the correct zeros right there. So just to kind of go back to number 71, why did I not do that one using synthetic division? Yeah, well, there's a number in front of that. See the 2m minus 3? It's not supposed to have a 2. It should be a 1. And if it's a 1, I do it synthetically. Right? Could I have forced it? Yeah, you divide everything by 2 to start the problem. So you have 3, 11 halves, and a 2 for your coefficients. And then negative 3 halves as your number that goes inside, or positive 3 halves as a number that goes inside your half block. But I don't like to do that whenever the problem itself doesn't do synthetic easily. So remember, synthetic division is only used for us whenever there is no number in front. So this right here kind of messes it up. Now, if it just would have been m minus 3, I would have just done it synthetically. Okay? And like I think I showed you guys before, I could still do it synthetically. It's just, it looks messy when you do it with fractions. So, all right, anything else? So 44 then, let's go back to 44. No, 44. Get there soon. All right, now I know the instructions on this one tell you to do a bunch of work, but essentially this is what you're doing. I always find it funny that they ask you to do all this work in a multiple choice test, but all you really have to do is just pick the right graph. So what do you need to do? Like, what must you do in order to pick the correct graph? So we need to know, here are the main questions you should ask yourself. Which way does it open? Okay. What's its axis of symmetry? These are the two main things you have to figure out. Once you know that, usually you're good. Maybe you might have to do the vertex. Okay? Maybe. But hopefully you don't, because then that's a lot more work. Okay? So, I look at number 44. Which way does it open?
Yeah.
That one opens down, right? So I'm going to put right here, opens down. So it's not A, it's not B, it's not D. So there you go. I just found my answer. It's C. Now let's just take it one more step just in case, so we can see how you're supposed to do it in case there was two things. The next thing you're supposed to do is say, what is the axis of symmetry? What's the vertical line that cuts it in half? So what I'm going to do is write x equal to negative b over 2a. X is negative b, that'd be negative of a negative 12 over 2 times a, which is a negative 2. So it's 12 over negative 4, which is negative 3. Notice how my answer at negative 3, here's negative 3, has a vertical line that would cut it right in half. Right? I could see right there. There would be a vertical line that cuts it perfectly in half. That's how you do both checks. You check which way does it open, and does the line cut it in half. Okay? So, all right, let me zoom back out. Any questions on that one? So we'll do the same thing with the other one. Which way does number 45 open? Opens up. Okay, is there anyone that can be disqualified? Just D. Okay, so now we have three options. So now we got to find the axis of symmetry, right? So x equals negative b over 2a. Negative b, that'd be negative of a negative 4 over 2 times a, which is 1. So that's a 4 over 2. So I'm just going to start writing the axis of symmetry at 2. So vertical line at 2. So here we go. For A, it's right there, and that seems to cut it perfectly in half. So that one looks like a really good option. Let's look at B. That's going by 10, 5, so 2 will be somewhere about here. The scale is different, okay? But notice that doesn't cut it in half, so that's not a good option. 2 is going to be about here. That doesn't cut it in half either. So it's not B, it's not C, it has to be A. A actually got cut in half. Whoops. And like that. Give me a second. Sometimes it'll highlight stuff by accident. So, are we good with those two? So remember, this is what you're focusing on, okay? You're at which way does it open? What's your axis of symmetry? If you had to find the vertex, all you guys have to do is get the axis of symmetry. So like for 45, just get the 2, plug it back into your equation, figure out what y is. And that's how you get your point, 2 comma something. Okay? But we didn't have to do that. All right. So these all start with factoring, okay? And I kind of mentioned, like, here's where it might start to slow down a little bit because we're going to have to factor some stuff. But 46 is very, very specific. Factor the common factor, okay? In other words, what do they have in common? They don't have a number in common, but they do have a letter in common, right? How many letters do they have in common? How many X's? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? They all have to have them in common. So this has x to the 5th, x to the 1st, x to the 6th. How many do they have in common? Just one of them, right? X. Just x. Now notice, I can already tell you my answer is C, just based on that little thing that I wrote. because that's all they have in common. Now, if I do divide everything by x, that means I reduce everything, every x by 1. That becomes 2. Whoa, this thing's getting a little weird here. So x, that'd be 2x to the 4th minus 1, because x divided by x is 1, plus 3x to the 5th. And again, your answer would be C. So that one's not supposed to be a hard problem. Just find out whatever they have in common. If they had a number in common as well, factor that out. Okay? Now, for 47, this says factor completely. So I'm going to try using the X method. They don't have anything in common to begin with, so I can't factor anything out. So A is already wrong. Because you see how that one has a 3 in the front? That means that they're saying 3 is in common for every term. That's not true. 3 doesn't divide 13. It doesn't even divide 4. So it can't be A. All right? But I am going to do X method. So with X method, 3 times 4, that's 12, and that's 13 right here. So two numbers that multiply to 12 that add up to 13 would be a positive 1 and a positive 12. But since A is a 3, not a 1, I have to divide. Well, 1/3 I can't simplify, so it is what it is. But 12/3, that becomes a positive 4. So here are my factors. X plus 1/3, X plus 4. So that would be 3x plus 1, X plus 4. So B is my answer. Same thing's going to happen with number 48. But remember, always ask yourself, to make your life easier, do they have something in common? Does 48 have something in common? They have a 3 in common. Not a 6, but they do have a 3. Because 6 can be divided by 3. 15 can be divided by 3. 9 can be divided by 3. So a 3 will come out, and I'll have 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. Notice, which ones can I get rid of as options? A and B, because that says that they had a 2 in common. Okay, remember what I'm telling you guys, every step you take, you might be able to check your multiple choices and eliminate stuff, right? And say like, it can't be that one, it can't be that one, all right? Okay, now we got to just factor this piece right here. So let's do that. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, and then the negative 5 goes down here. Two numbers that multiply to negative 6 that add up to negative 5, negative 6, positive 1. Okay? That multiplies to negative 6, they add up to negative 5. I have to divide by 2, right? Because there's a 2 in the front for A, so divide by 2. The fraction stays, but negative 6 over 2 is just going to be a negative 3. So I get x minus 3, x plus half. So that's just x minus 3, 2x plus 1. And then there's the 3 in the front, right? That 3 is going to have to come down. So which one is it? C, right? D looks close. It's just D has 2x minus 1, not 2x plus 1. So that's 48. Any questions so far in anything we've done? Going from 70, 71, 72, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. All right, factor completely. I've gotten a lot of questions on this one. I want to remind you guys. This is called a difference of two squares, okay? Oops, it's on the wrong side. Because there's only two terms, and there's a minus in the middle. Difference of two squares, right? So this would just become A minus B, A plus B. But you got to figure out what's A, what's B. So I get the x squared minus 25, and I'm going to say, okay, what squared is x squared? It's kind of repetitive, but what letter squared gives me x squared? X. That's x squared. What number squared gives me 25? 5. So your answer is just going to be x minus 5, x plus 5. So right here. And here's the thing that's kind of interesting. If you know that that's a difference of 2 squares, you'll know it can't be this. And you should be able to tell, like, yeah, I can do squares for 25 and x. So you know it can't be that. So the only one that's kind of like, maybe it might be is b, but honestly it won't be because the first terms never change signs. It's always x, x. So it won't be this one either. Because that one has x and minus x, right? So I know that it doesn't ever do that.
Can you do that? That's what I do.
You can do the x method. So here's a question on that one. You can do the x method on this, but it's just faster to do it this way. But if you wanted to do it, what's my a term for this problem?
0.
Not 0.
Okay.
A is 1. B is 0, right? And C is negative 25. So you could do a times c, that's negative 25 at a 0, so it'd be a positive 5 and a negative 5. These would be your factors. And you get the same answer, right? But the reason why they don't tell you to do that is because it's so much faster. If you notice it, you know the pattern. A minus b, a plus b, just figure out a and b, done, right? But you can totally do it. Any binomial can be done as long as it has perfect squares, can be done using the x method. I don't teach it that way because it just takes more time. So, plus, they don't want you to learn it using that, but it's a good, you can still use it. They don't want you doing x method with that or box method with the b equals 0. It's just, not that it's bad, it just takes more time. But hey, if that's the way you know how to do it, then do it. It doesn't matter. You still get the same answers. Any questions on that one? So I just kind of showed you x method on something that shouldn't be done with an x method, but you can still do it. All right, solve each equation by factoring. So same thing that we've been doing, we're just solving it, setting it equal to 0. The nice thing about these first two problems is they're already solved for you, right? Well, not solved, but they're pretty much almost solved. They have x plus 3 and x plus 8 already factored. So you're just going to write those factors as, I'm trying to get this ready to come out here, as two mini equations. So this would just be negative 3 and negative 8. So B. And same thing with 51. It's already factored for me, so I'm just going to write the equations. X plus 5 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. So x is going to be negative 5 and 2. So those are simple. Now, 52 and 53, that's a little different. Okay? Those are going to be a little bit different because we have to actually work it out. We got to factor. So let's see. We'll do x method for it. A times c, that's 28, and negative 11 goes here. Factors of 28, that give me 11. Well, 1 and 28 won't. 2 and 14 will not, because that'll give me a 12. 4 and 7 will. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So yeah, it's 4 and 7. They both have to be negative, though. And I don't have to divide by anything because a is 1. So my answer is going to be n minus 4, n minus 7 equal to 0. So my two answers are going to be what? 4 and 7. So D. Do the same thing with number 53, right? Do the x method here. So let's see. A times c is 4, b is 5. Two numbers that multiply to 4 that add up to 5 will be 4 and 1. So positive 4, positive 1. I don't have to divide by anything because my a term is in 1. So these are my two factors here. So it's going to be x plus 4, x plus 1. And that's going to be equal to 0. So x is going to be what and what? Negative 1, negative 4. So A. I'm just skipping the step where I write it out as a specific answer, right? But I mean, we should be so used to doing that. You guys should be able to do that in your head, right? All right, I said we're going to try to get up to 50. We'll stop at 57. And then tomorrow we'll do 58 and so on. So we got 4 more problems to do, okay? That way we'll be on the route of being done on Friday, okay? So, and that way you guys have Monday, Tuesday to just kind of ask questions. So, 54 you guys can actually do on a calculator. If your calculator can do square roots and simplify, great. If it can't, use one of mine, okay? But if not, you can do it in your head. What is the square root of 64? Not 16. 8. But the answer is 16. Well, you could always just put that into a calculator too. Radical 64, it should tell you 16. Okay? So that's 54. Number 55, they just want you to simplify as much as possible. So this becomes negative 4 plus a negative 4. So that's minus 4 plus a negative I. That's minus I minus 4. So negative 4 minus 4 minus 4 is negative 12 minus I. That's B. If you're wondering why didn't I change any of the signs when I distributed the positive, a positive never switches signs, only negatives. So if I was distributing a negative, then I would have switched the signs of the terms on the inside. The positives don't do anything. Okay? Well, in terms of distribution. All right, 56. Negative 8I times a negative I, that would be a positive I squared. But what's I squared? Negative 1. So this answer is negative 8. Okay, 57, 5I squared. Well, that's just 5I times 5I, right? So that's 25I squared. But I squared is a negative 1. Don't forget that. I'll put it right here. Okay? Something you guys have to make sure you write down somewhere. So I squared, that's a negative 1. So this becomes negative 25. And the good news is on Friday, we've already done a bunch of these other ones, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. But we've already done a bunch of the 58 and after.